Capital cities are strange. Planned capitals are strange, especially. Cities not designed to house humans, but governments. Places planned for governments, like Brasilia or Canberra, seem to be jacks of all trades, but in truth, the master plans that created them often turn out to be masters of none. But even in the oceans of strange capitals and the sea of planned ones, there's one particular city that is so strange it borders on terrifying. A city created by a chain of egocentric dictators, eager to cement their legacy through white marble and gaudy statues. This is a city unlike any other in the world. This is the terrifying design of Ashgabat. Turkmenistan is located here, on the coast of the Caspian Sea, covering enormous swaths of the desert in the Middle East. The post-Soviet nation is undoubtedly vast, but this vastness never stopped colonization. Given its location, Turkmenistan was a crossroads of empires, and perhaps still is today, with Iran, Russia, and China enclosing the nation on all sides. However, much of Turkmenistan's recent history has been defined by the Soviet Union, which occupied Turkmenistan for decades. As is common for post-colonial nations, the current government feels very strongly about projecting a national identity. Naturally then, they needed a capital city to demonstrate their authority. While Turkmenistan is a post-colonial nation, it hosts one of the most prolific natural gas industries on the entire planet, being perhaps its only true economic lifeline. But it is a lifeline that brings in significant cash for the otherwise isolated nation, allowing it to build grandiose structures and monuments. This is Ashgabat on a map. Relative to nearby capital cities, it's small, but it also looks different. Once, Ashgabat was bulldozed to make way for Soviet housing, but now the city has been bulldozed again, taking with it the remaining organic urban fabric that was once left there. Ashgabat, therefore, is a mix partly created by centralized planners in Moscow, but now created by centralized planners within its own city limits. Take a look at any Soviet bloc. All principles were defined by regulations made far, far away. But this Soviet design created the first real order in the city. Whether or not that's a good thing is up to you, but if you look at large parts of the city today, the structure is easily recognizable. Streets must be straight, they must be wide, and ideally should run north to south and east to west. Apartments should be placed in smaller groups to create a sense of community. Occasionally, build a supermarket, a school, or perhaps a park if you're lucky. Each apartment complex, each block, each superblock, and each district, on some level or another, should function as a city within a city. But uniform blocks of housing were not just something from the Soviet past. In fact, Ashgabat is far more well known for the housing built in this century. This is a district in the western part of Ashgabat. But wind back the clock, and you'll see that these apartments haven't been here for very long. No more than 25 years. And yet, these buildings were designed with nearly identical planning ideals. Streets must be straight, and they must be wide. Apartments should be placed in smaller groups to create a sense of community. Occasionally build a supermarket, a school, or perhaps a park if you're lucky. But there's another reason why these apartments are being built the way they are. This neighborhood used to be far more organic, with small houses, 1 or 2 floors high. Now, apartments are uniform, monolithic, and clad entirely in white marble. In the Soviet Union, housing was functional, whereas here in Ashgabat, housing is decorative and imposing. People are not going to respect a ramshackle concrete time capsule in Minsk, but a wide boulevard filled with skyscrapers. That'll show them. Boulevards are a major part of Ashgabat's design, but these serve a slightly different purpose. Streets do exist to get from one place to another, but these avenues are designed as monumental architecture in their own right. Each boulevard is lined with housing built in marble. Every major boulevard leads to a focal point at one or both ends of its run. At one end of this avenue is a mall, and at the other end is the main public square of the city, and perhaps even the entire country. Within each boulevard there is one other interesting feature: a roundabout. These intersections are not built for efficiency, they are built to display. Every roundabout has some arrangement of fountains and statues, made of the same marble or obsessively polished metal. Boulevards may be useful for getting from one place to another, but they're also designed for one thing, and one thing only: directing attention to superhuman projections of power. Directing attention to superhuman projections of power in the form of statues, fountains, parks, and monuments. However, monuments are not just limited to intersections and plazas, but districts as well. In the south of the city, there is a triangular district covered in stadiums. This district is called the Ashgabat Olympic Park. Not exactly an ambiguous purpose, but an ambiguous implementation, absolutely. Connected by a linear, winding path, every stadium or arena you could ever need for an Olympic event is contained within this one area. Unlike a city like Paris, where sports venues are separated by miles of organic urban fabric, this one district is made to impose. Everything about this district is curated. These stadiums were pulled together as a gallery of Turkmen power. This complex may never be used for its namesake purpose, but perhaps the presence of magnificent stadiums will give you the illusion of an international city. And perhaps the point is no more complicated than that. This design is largely thanks to one person. This person, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, Turkmenistan's dictator. He has a childlike obsession with white marble, sometimes on apartments, sometimes on government buildings, sometimes on statues, occasionally of himself, sometimes of horses. And sometimes he builds the world's largest indoor Ferris wheel just for kicks. He's projecting his ideas onto a city-sized canvas, telling everyone that there's one man who controls it all. Everything about Ashgabat signals to its inhabitants that the city is not really designed for people, it's designed for government. And this is the area that embodies this thinking most accurately. This is the heart of Turkmen government, a few blocks in the heart of Ashgabat. There are two axes here in the center of the city. One is a wide boulevard with a park in the middle, ending in a statue of a horse, clad, of course, in white marble. The other is a major avenue coming up from the south and terminating at the Presidential Palace Square. There are three major public spaces here: the aforementioned East-West Park, the concisely named 10th anniversary of Turkmenistan's Independence Park, and the Presidential Palace Square. Within this area, government buildings rise high above the streets, with a mix of modern and traditional architecture. The references to traditional architecture are undoubtedly to add cultural value and national pride to the otherwise overbuilt buildings. This whole block at the very center of the city is designed for the president, with multiple palaces facing outward towards the street and an obsessively laid out garden facing inward. A complex so massive that it makes the Palace of Versailles look like budget accommodation. Each structure within this government district is made to feel larger than life. A welcoming capital? Hell no. That would be weak. Every opportunity for symmetry was acted upon, giving each building presence. Perhaps that is what makes this city so strange. This was a city built purely as an illusion of presence. The obsessive straightness of roads and the curated design of every single public space, both large and small, show that Ashgabat is merely an illusion. That, undoubtedly, is what makes this city so terrifying. There is no way of knowing what goes on behind the perfectly polished walls of extravagant buildings. Sometimes master-planned capitals are a way of displaying national greatness to the world. But this city is not built for that. No, Ashgabat was built to hide the harsh truth that the nation of which it is the capital is isolated and insecure. But perhaps, one day, that will change. Perhaps the open squares of Ashgabat will be filled with people, marveling at the strangest city on earth. Maybe one day, a game at Ashgabat's Olympic Stadium will be seen around the world. Maybe. Thanks for watching.